Top 10 actors who hated working with Marvel. Though most actors are forever excited to take on infamous superhero roles, the on-set experience of some of these Marvel stars shows us that working with superheroes isn't always fun and games, as experienced by these top 10 actors who hated working with Marvel. Number 10. Mickey Rourke, Iron Man 2. For irascible old Mickey Rourke, it's par for the course to be completely honest about absolutely everything, even if that everything is the reason for your latest Hollywood rejection and subsequent career slump. Here's a particularly enlightening soundbite about his 2011 film Passion Play, Terrible. Another terrible movie. Rourke reserved his most stinging judgment for Marvel Studios, however, and the producers that decided to take a punt on Rourke for Iron Man 2 after he made his comeback with The Wrestler. In Iron Man 2, Rourke plays villain Ivan Vanko, or Whiplash, and it seems a lot of the preparation Rourke did for the film annoyingly came in his eyes at least to nothing. The people are Marvel just wanted a one-dimensional bad guy, so most of the performance ended up on the floor. Number 8. Natalie Portman, Thor: The Dark World. Alan Taylor wasn't the only one, it seems, who had a poor time of it making Thor 2. One of his stars, namely Natalie Portman, was just as miffed making the film as Taylor was, and part of it was down to Taylor being there in the first place. Having been burned once during pre-production of Passion Project Jane Got a Gun, which saw original director Lynn Ramsay ignominiously sacked, Portman was probably looking forward to working with one of those rare women that Hollywood actually allows to direct its projects. Then Patty Jenkins, hired at Portman's behest, was fired from Thor: The Dark World, and Portman reportedly lost her cool with Marvel. Number 7. Idris Elba, Avengers: Age of Ultron. Speaking of Age of Ultron, Natalie Portman's Dark World co-star, Idris Elba, was left feeling similarly aggravated over his contractual obligation to appear in that film. Though Elba had appeared in promotional rounds to be enthusiastic about the first Thor film, his words were less kind about Age of Ultron. As Elba's star had risen between Thor and Ultron, the actor was more in demand than ever, so much that Joss Whedon wanted Elba for an unscheduled appearance in his Avengers follow-up. For Elba, the move from playing Nelson Mandela in the Oscar-winning Long Walk to Freedom to playing a space Viking in a comic book movie was not so much a jump as a precipitous drop. Elba's complaints regarding Ultron range from working with green screen to Heimdall's headwear, this fucking helmet, to going from the honor of being called Medivh on the Freedom set to being strung up in a harness on Ultron's. Elba described his cameo in Ultron as a torture that ripped my heart out. He only knuckled down and got on with the job after his agent assured him there was no way out of it. Number 6. Joss Whedon, Avengers: Age of Ultron. To be fair to Joss Whedon, it seems he was just as irritable making Age of Ultron as Idris Elba was, if not more so. As news emerged in 2015, in the run-up to Age of Ultron's release, that Whedon was electing not to renew his contract as a key player over at Marvel Studios. Fans began to wonder if something was awry. Turns out it was, and after Whedon's contract was up, he didn't hold back on spilling the beans. Whedon even told Empire that working on Ultron was really unpleasant, as his vision of the film was continually compromised by studio execs. Some of Whedon's comments about Marvel wrestling control away from him once he'd entered production reflect Alan Taylor's. Whedon said producers threatened to call the farmhouse scene a favorite of his if they didn't get the cave sequence they wanted. While the film doesn't even end as Whedon intended, the writing was on the wall when Whedon came out in support of Edgar Wright and not his employer after Marvel removed Wright from Ant-Man. Number 5. Edgar Wright, Ant-Man. Yes, Ant-Man, the film that Edgar Wright labored over for 8 years, only to have the project taken from him at the 11th hour so it could be directed by someone else. To date, the Ant-Man affair is the ugliest in the brief history of Marvel Studios. And what's most surprising is that Wright has said next to nothing about what went down. Aside from Regan announcing his leaving the project in a joint statement with Marvel, there's been no word from the Wright camp. You'd imagine Wright probably just wants to forget about the whole thing, seeing as how Marvel allowed him to toil from 2006 to 2014 on a film that they would eventually take and give to director Peyton Reed to complete instead. This after Wright had shot test footage, fully cast the film, and, along with co-writer Joe Cornish, written multiple drafts of the script, all complete with alterations based on copious notes from Marvel. He may not have publicly castigated Marvel. It's not his style, but Wright's absolute silence since his departure speaks volumes. Number 4. Edward Norton, The Incredible Hulk. Edward Norton has had a reputation as a troublemaker his entire career, so Marvel knew what they were getting into when they hired him to play Bruce Banner in The Incredible Hulk. Already by that point, Norton had shut American History, ex-director Tony Kaye out of editing, and cut the film himself, and clashed with the Writers Guild of America after he claimed he, and not the 3 screenwriters credited, wrote the film freedom. Perhaps Marvel expected Norton to have matured by the time he made The Incredible Hulk, but nope, he was just as difficult as ever. After again getting involved in editing a film that wasn't his, Norton disagreed with Marvel over the running time of the film, where Norton and director Louis Leterrier, who, God bless him, seems to have just gone along with whatever Norton wanted, asked for a longer cut. Marvel wanted Hulk to come in at under 2 hours. Marvel won and Norton sulked. Apparently, when Bruce Banner gets angry, he doesn't go green, he just refuses to promote his own movie. Number 3. Terrence Howard, Iron Man. The original Marvel cast member turned Marvel hater, and perhaps the best, Terrence Howard, has hardly stopped talking about how he got screwed out of the MCU since Don Cheadle replaced him as James Rhodes, aka the War Machine. And hopefully he won't stop, because so far Howard has been like a goldmine for gossip fans. Though it initially seemed like Marvel really wanted Howard for the MCU. Rumored bad behavior by Howard on the Iron Man set saw his role in Iron Man 2 reduced and his salary significantly cut. Whether he was pushed or he jumped, Howard was out and Don Cheadle was in. Since then, Howard has accused Marvel of killing his career, or trying to, and blamed Robert Downey Jr. for pushing him out and taking money that was set for Howard. Number 2. Andrew Garfield, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man movies were not up to par with the previous Spider-Man films, or even the more recent Spider-Man Homecoming, and that is something that star Andrew Garfield is willing to admit. When Garfield first signed up to be in the movies, it was a dream come true, but everything changed when the sequel came around, and the studio's priorities had changed, as they supposedly focused more on setting up spin-offs and sequels than on the story itself. Number 1. Ryan Reynolds, X-Men Origins, Wolverine. Ryan Reynolds may have redeemed his portrayal of Deadpool in 2016's Deadpool, and later this year with Deadpool 2, but his track record of the character has not been perfect. He first appeared as the Merc with the Mouth in 2008's X-Men Origins, Wolverine, and it was not a pleasant time for him. It was a very frustrating experience, Reynolds told People. I was already attached to the Deadpool movie. We hadn't at that point written a script yet. Origins came along and it was sort of like, play Deadpool in this movie, or we'll get someone else to. And I just said, I'll do it, but it's the wrong version. Deadpool isn't correct in it. With that, we end today's video. Join in next time for more of such interesting content.